Hey, I watched a whole video on the coalesce conjecture to try and write one sin, so don't start with
Yes,
me.
yes, and it got cut.
Welcome to Behind the Sins, presented by Cinemasins.
Welcome to Behind the Sins, a look at what's going on inside the world of Cinemasins. I'm Aaron Dicer, and this week I'm joined by fellow Bafflegabbers Danielle Cardoso
Good day.
and Ian Whittington.
Good day.
We write for Cinemasins and TV Sins and do various other things inside the Cinemasins universe as well. And welcome to episode 2 of the Battle of the Sins for 2022.
The gauntlet.
Yes, Ian, what?
The gauntlet.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going back into sports mode. You were going to do some more sports references for us.
Aaron refers to the outtakes.
Listen, it has to happen within the first paragraph. So I am excited for this episode. It is the three of us. This will be a little different than the first one. The goal here is that the whole team will be together on the first one and that the whole team will help choose the winner at the end. In between, we'll have various different people hanging out with us. I'll be here hosting. I think Ian wants to be on all of them, so Ian's going to be hanging out on all of them with us.
Want is a strong word, but yes, I will be here.
Want is an interesting word for that email, you strongly worded email you sent.
So Ian, you're going to be here, aren't you? I was like, oh yeah, yes. No, I'm excited. This is right in my wheelhouse. I love this debate comparison and then having a final answer, a definitive, objective winner at the end that cannot be contested or challenged.
Yeah, because there's a process in place to determine it. We go through that process to determine it. It is the winner.
Yeah.
There's
by a metric, it wins.
Yes, exactly. So it's exciting. We've got 3 of us here today. Most episodes will have 4, and then the audience vote will be the tiebreaker if there's a tie. However, today there will be no tiebreakers because that's how odd numbers work.
Indeed.
So
I do have a question, actually.
Sure.
So everyone at home can play along and vote as well.
Yes.
Is that separate from our vote, or is that all amalgamated into the final result?
It's separate from our vote unless you yourself have gone on the website and voted on the website. Yes. So then you are part of that audience vote as well, which that's fine if you want to be part of the audience vote too.
So we're going to have 2 winners then?
No. We are the Sins team is picking. We are the experts in this field.
So you can play along at home and it means nothing.
This is why I said we're going to have 4 most episodes so that the audience vote becomes, in many cases, the most important vote.
Got it. So there's a chance it will count. So
Correct.
You're saying there's a chance.
So what I'm saying is today on this episode, you don't count.
If you did vote, I'm sorry you wasted your time. Thanks for playing.
And lots of people are voting. And again, if you want to do that, the website will be in the description. But I will tell you it's challenge.com instead of challenge. Challenge with an O.com/2022 Sin Battle. So, and yes, it is 2023, but we are battling the 2020 movies we send. So if that is the goal, that is what we're going to do. So we have compiled all of the movies that we send over 2022. There are 107 of them that we send last year. And we have seeded them by number of sins. Now, if you know anything about Cinemasins, you know those numbers don't necessarily represent the overall quality of the movie. There are bonus rounds that happen. There are, times when we ridiculously add 1 million sins, whatever the case may be. So that is what this conversation is for. We are going to talk about what makes these the most sinful movies. That is a subjective thing. So we're going to have some interesting debates about these as we go through. So we are on to, let's see, we're going to do 11 more today. We're going to do 11 more matchups today. And feel free, again, to play along at home. These will update on the challenge sheet. It just sounds like I'm saying challenge wrong, doesn't it?
It does. The challenge.
The challenge sheet. These will update the day the episode comes out. So in order not to spoil for people who are wanting to vote up until the episode releases, if you want your vote to be considered in the matchups, you're going to need to be a week ahead of that.
It's already too late.
Yeah. If you're waiting that long, it's already too late. But you'll need to be a week ahead of that. But they will update on the day that the episode drops. And if you're a Sin Club member, that means they will update the day after you hear the episode. So is all of that clear? Again, that website is challenge.com/2022.
From the French,
Battle.
from unneeded reality TV show, I believe.
From the European need to add O's places where they don't exist.
A couple of extra E's in there as well.
All right, so we're going to get into this. Do either of you have any questions before we head into our 11 matchups today?
Absolutely.
Okay. Daniel?
Yeah, I have a ton of questions, mostly related to the nature of reality and the quantum states of the universe. But regarding this, no, I don't. Good.
Okay. Well, coming soon on Daniel's metaphysical podcast, we will get into that other stuff. But
hey, I watched a whole video on the coalesce conjecture to try and write one sin, so don't start with me.
Yes, and it got cut.
Amazing.
Amazing.
All right, Ian, I will ask you another question. Do you have any questions that you would like to ask?
Oh, that's a much better question. No.
Okay, all right. Let's get into it then.
Battle stations!
Fight! 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 Fight!
Time for the one-on-ones.
Who will win this year's $1 million game?
Round one, ding ding!
We will kick it off with Willow versus Upgrade. Willow versus Upgrade.
Often compared.
In the same circles, the very same fan base. Yeah.
And Upgrade, by the way, is a Sin Club video. So this is
from
one
Sin
that
Week
not
last year.
everybody has seen. So yeah, from last year's Sin Week. So Jeremy and Jonathan wrote on Willow, and Jeremy and Chris wrote on Upgrade. Willow had 141 sins. Upgrade had 116 sins. So let's talk about the sinfulness of these movies. What makes these movies sinful? First of all, has everybody seen both of these movies? I've seen both of these movies. Ian?
I have not. I have not seen Willow. I have seen Upgrade and reviewed the script.
Okay. Daniel?
Other way around. I've seen Willow, but it was a long time ago, and I have not seen Upgrade. I've just seen the Sins video.
Oh, dude, you would like Upgrade.
Yeah.
We should stop and just watch Upgrade.
How sinful is Upgrade, Ian?
Oh man,
It's pretty sinful.
It's pretty sinful. It's really, really sinful. It's a fun action romp, but it has all of the villain's plan tropings. This is where it really falls apart. The villain's plan is so convoluted and could have been completed much sooner. It also has technology that works exactly when and as needed by the plot, and then suddenly does not work as and when needed by the plot. But I do think all of that sinful tropiness does serve the story, and it gives you a really tight, kind of believable, this is where the future could end up story. I don't feel like it leans on those tropes to cut corners or just is willy-nilly. It does have a set of rules in place that it attempts to follow, but then kind of just plops them to the side when it wants to have a big action set piece or needs to progress from the next onto the next point.
And we're all thankful.
And exactly, these are sins I want to see in a movie because I have such a good time with this film.
That's something I think people forget, is there really isn't an equality of sinful to good or bad movie making. In fact, it could be said that sins are a necessary part of movie making. Like to make a good movie, you have to cut things out of reality.
Yeah.
You have to use exposition. You have to tell a 2-hour story, you're gonna have to do some of those things. There's a reason every single thing we sin, and not an exaggeration, every single one of them, I dare you to find one that's not, I'm just kidding, there are plenty that has news position. It's crazy how many TV shows and movies use a news channel on a bar to tell you what you need to know.
Because it's kind of efficient as well. It is a kind of good way to communicate information. It can get a bit eye-rolly.
Right.
I think what was really fun about this script when I reviewed it, and it was something I was going to suggest if they hadn't put it in, but it was he has this home computer that is omniscient and knows things about his life before they happen in the story. And there's how did the house get, why was that the priority, who reprogrammed the house to adapt to what's going on inside and It's probably the most egregious use of zoom and enhance with drones, and the information they managed to pull out of some drone footage that was the biggest eye-rolly part, because him progressing through the movie depends on this ridiculous piece of evidence that no one else found other than him, and to be honest, he shouldn't have found it. Like, what always gets me in movies is when chance comes into play, because if this drone hadn't been in this point and spotted this thing, there's no movie, the plot doesn't continue. And that's not down to skill or smart people being smart, it's just the universe and the writers wanted them to win. And that's something that I struggle to not eye roll in the moment.
Yeah, it's definitely sinful. Daniel, what's sinful about Willow that you remember?
I feel like it was a lot of the motive. Well, okay, see, the story itself gets a bit confusing in terms of like motives and like decision making among the characters. Let's see, I think it's a bit confusing why why Willow's been tasked with with this particular
for sure,
and that kind of starts things off. So it's like spiraling out from there, and then it doesn't. I mean, when I revisited the Sins video, it didn't strike me when I was younger. But should he have trusted Mad Mardigan? I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. The other thing about Willow is it has a lot of just those older movie sins that you just have because you're an older movie, and back then they weren't worried about certain pieces of continuity being caught or, you know, certain things being as cliche or trope, you know, because it was just, you know, how you told stories, and they really hadn't locked down the tone of fantasy storytelling either. And so there's a lot of tonal issues that I have with Willow, where it feels like it doesn't know exactly what kind of movie it wants to be. Yeah.
And it's I mean, I guess I didn't know anything about Lord of the Rings at the moment, but it definitely, looking back, it has some Tolkien-esque
for sure
comparisons.
Yeah.
It is interesting.
I
how
wasn't
many
aware
movies
of at the time.
We're trying to do that even before Lord of the Rings became a movie. Like, just based on the book, it was like, we want to play in this world.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it was a nut that they were trying to crack. Like it for a long time, fantasy was just one of those things that people really enjoyed in their books or, you know, comics or whatever. And movies just had a hard time cracking that. You know, Lord of the Rings, many people forget before that movie came out, it was like, this is doomed to fail. Like, you can't make a fantasy tale like this. It's just, people aren't going to buy into elves and these kind. And now it's like, what do you mean people aren't going to buy? Why would people not buy into elves?
They're cool by default.
So, So yeah, it was an interesting nut to crack. And I think until Lord of the Rings, nobody really had done that. Are there popular fantasy movies before Lord of the Rings? Of course there are. But they hadn't quite found the formula for like mainstream acceptance.
Labyrinth.
Yeah, exactly. Same kind of thing. All right. Any other commentary before we vote?
No, but just based on my like experience with Willow adjacent movies, that's what I'll be basing my vote on.
Ian, what is your vote?
I don't know.
Daniel, what is your vote?
I'm voting for Willow.
Willow is the most sinful movie. Ian?
On instinct, I am going to vote Willow, which feels really wrong having not seen the movie, but just based on how much I enjoy Upgrade and how those sins, for me, in most ways, benefit the story, and what I've heard about Willow and it just being a bit a victim of being dated, I think it's the more sinful movie.
I agree. I think Willow is the more sinful movie here as well. The audience also agreed. 69% of the audience said that Willow was more sinful. So Willow will move on.
That's going to happen a lot, isn't it?
Maybe. Certainly won't be the last time. All right, let's move on to Minority Report and Unstoppable. Two movies I love going up against each other. The 61 seed and the 68 seed. So this should be a close match. 131 sins in Minority Report, 126 sins in Unstoppable. So very close in the sin total as well. None of us wrote on these, but I am curious, what have you seen? Daniel, which of these have you seen?
I've seen both.
Ian?
I've seen Minority Report, and I know I would love Unstoppable.
Yeah, that's one.
Everyone's told me I would love it.
Unstoppable's a
I'm a
lot of
Neeson
fun.
dude. No, wait, Unstoppable isn't Neeson. That's the...
No, it's Denzel.
No, Unknown is what I'm thinking of. But it's Denzel and Chris Pine, isn't it?
Yes.
Unstoppable.
Yeah. It's Denzel and Captain Kirk.
Yep.
Danielle.
Danielle.
Was that Denzel and Daniel together?
Sure was. Sure was. Take it as a compliment.
Thanks.
Daniel, what are some of your thoughts since you've seen them both?
I remember loving Minority Report. Like the whole future aesthetic of it. It's pretty amazing. A lot of things I remember loving about the movie, like when I rewatched the Sins video, I was like, yeah, I guess that doesn't make any sense. Like the whole thing with that stuck in my mind and like I just made me laugh at myself was the little murder balls, like the grain, and he's like they're unforgeable because they have a unique grain, and then like the sin is basically that makes them easily forgeable because you can just make a new one and it will have a unique grain. And it's just like it was one of those things when you see it the first time, I was like, oh, that's so cool. Like it's such a
right.
And then it immediately took that away from me. And so there's some of that. I think the motivations behind from the main villain there. There's a lot of things that need to work in his favor and just happen to work like right up until the end. And that is pretty sinful in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think that the movie does rely a lot on its visual like storytelling. I think that when you get into the weeds of it does start to kind of chip away at itself. But I think it's like you said before, like all those little things keep the story moving. Like I love the pace of the movie, and like I think that it's a great performance by Tom Cruise and Colin Farrell, and I mean everyone. So,
Ian, what are some of what makes Minority Report sinful for you?
I do love this movie. I might be on an island here. I don't think it's aged as well as we think it has. When I rewatched it to review Chris and Jeremy's script, there was so much where I was like, this kind of feels a little bit dated now. And there are a lot of action movie tropes and crutches that are lent on. Like the one that stands out is let's give the annoying person, in this instance, Colin Farrell, something annoying to do. And I think he either chews gum or has a toothpick or something. And this was just like such a crutch we lean on for everything. Is let's make this person obnoxious by putting something in their mouth, and it's so distracting. But that's such a little nitpick. In terms of the story, the ambition in this movie is incredible, and it is a victim of that ambition as well, because as great as the world building is, it isn't consistent when it comes to what the bad guy needs to do and what the good guy needs to do. And one of the most egregious ones for me is the eyeball replacement thing. It just like categorically, without question, you will be blind if the light touches your eye within this time limit or whatever. What happens? The robot touches his eye, it scans it, he's fine, it doesn't matter. And that is always a moment I remember from the movie of just setting up this very clear consequence and then ignoring it. And there's a couple of other examples in the movie as well. The ball is a great one. The unforgeable ball that is forged. And we know it's forged, and that is laying on so thick that it's impossible to forge always puts that seed of doubt in our mind that maybe Tom Cruise is guilty here, but it's never really going to go that way. So in terms of not being true to its own world building, it's pretty sinful. But for the most part, much like Upgrade, I feel like it does benefit the story, and it is a beautiful, beautiful movie. And I remember when it came out, people were raving about like The Matrix and how different that was. Minority Report was that movie for me. I was like, I haven't seen a movie like this that is this bold and this in the future, and in a future that I believe. Like, I believe that this is where technology can go, and that whole Tom Cruise swiping and moving things around. We're kind of doing stuff like that now. It's impractical, but they were pretty prescient, and it's hard to know whether they were predicting or people were like, hey, Minority Report is cool. Let's replicate some of the stuff that happened in Minority Report, kind of like the Star Trek effect with like the flip phone and which came first. But man, I don't know how I'm going to compare this to Unstoppable, which is a movie I know has a train in it.
I do think the interface stuff is really interesting. I think a lot of times with future technology, the place you should start is what is the most frictionless way you could think to do this? Not whether or not it's possible, what's the most frictionless? And I think aside from just thought control, like thought control being an interface, motion control is the most frictionless, right? Yeah. Like it's the idea that I can, if the computer knows what I mean by movements of my hand, like that's pretty easy for me to do. Talking still takes some friction. Like I have to, say words, those kind of things. And certainly if I have to move like an actual, physical object around. So like, I think the movement-based technology is really interesting. One of the sins that I hate in Minority Report is that the automatic vehicles just don't have any kind of safety protocols for people like hanging on.
Yeah,
or whatever.
Climb on the outside.
It's just like that vehicle should immediately be stopping. Like, what are we doing here? Like, how is this happening? That always annoys me. And then there's always a little bit about seeing the future stuff that I dig into and can't, fully grasp my mind around. And so, I consider some of that stuff sinful as well. What about Unstoppable, Daniel?
I think that the ridiculous use of helicopters sticks out as the most simple thing.
Sure.
I think that I haven't decided yet, but Unstoppable, for everything that's great about it, it probably should. It might be the most sinful just because of how much it uses helicopters in like the most incorrect ways.
I want to see this movie. That's great. What an oddly specific criticism. It's amazing.
It's interesting for me because so much of what's sinful about Unstoppable is just how conveniently everything happens so that we can get that story, right? Like there's so many different parts of the story where it's like, well, that had to happen in exactly that way so that we're here so that this person could be in control at this time. And then that had to happen so that we have, the story of that fits both of their backstories are important to what they're dealing with. Like everything in the movie is so clearly contrived, right? But that's what makes it an awesome movie. But that's the most sinful part to me is how contrived and convenient everything in Unstoppable feels. So this is going to be a tough one for me. Ian, I'm going to let you go first since you've only seen the one.
This is where I think Minority Report is let down by its length and complexity. Knowing that Unstoppable is a kind of A to B to C stop action movie, I think Minority Report, just on volume, has to be more sinful because it's trying more and because it has a higher level of difficulty.
All right, Ian goes with Minority Report as the most sinful movie. Daniel?
That was sort of my thinking as well. Is that like because Minority Report is like seeing the future and like time travel, well, not time travel, but like playing with that there's got to be more sins. But the sheer number of like train sins in like Unstoppable might I'm pretty sure that like there's a ton of things that we weren't even able to mention or know about just in the operation of a train. So my original instinct was Minority Report, but I think I'm going to go with Unstoppable.
Nice.
All right, Daniel goes with Unstoppable as the more sinful movie. I guess I will break the tie then. I think Minority Report is the more sinful movie. It's so hard to say because I also think Minority Report is the better movie. I really do. Yeah. Like if I'm looking, it's close. It's not like a blowout, but if I'm looking like what movie have I enjoyed more times and have gone back to because I want to see it again, it's Minority Report. And but I just think it's more sinful. I think it's trying to it has to cheat more than Unstoppable does. And all of Unstoppable's, not all, but most of Unstoppable's sins for me kind of all fall in the same category too. So it feels like it's kind of just one big sin in some ways. That means Minority Report will move on as the most sinful movie. The audience disagrees, but it was very close. 54% to 46%. Believe that Unstoppable was the more sinful movie. That was a close one.
What's so interesting about this is that I don't understand what's an upset and what isn't, because do you want Minority Report to win? Or if that's your favorite movie, you want it to be knocked out sooner?
Depends on how you look at it. Right. How do you look at the exercise? Is the exercise to make sure to protect your favorite movies?
But there is like this built-in thing of, like, let's say
Minority Report wins.
Yeah, the whole thing is like, oh no, that's bad. That's bad. Like if Back to the Future happened to be number one, I'd be like, oh no, oh.
Back to the Future is a very sinful movie.
Yes, but shut up. It's the greatest movie of all time.
Let's move on to the next one. Jeepers Creepers versus Dave.
Should we just go straight to the vote?
I wrote on both of these. This is a 29 seed. That would be Jeepers Creepers versus 100 seed. So it's definitely weighted. There were 163 sins in Jeepers Creepers, which Ian and I wrote together. And there were 105 sins in Dave, which Jeremy and I wrote together. So I did write on both of these. So I guess I will start. This is closer than you think. I'm not going to say it's close. I'm not going to say that there's any real suspense at what we're going to come up with here. But Dave is a very sinful movie upon rewatch. That relationship stuff. By the way, have you guys seen both?
I haven't seen Dave.
Okay. Daniel?
I've seen Dave, but I haven't seen Jeepers Creepers.
Okay, so you guys are swapped again. The relationship stuff in Dave is really ridiculous. The fact that the first lady is tricked into, first of all, thinking that somebody is her husband who isn't, and she does figure it out eventually.
I would hope immediately.
But she doesn't. No? She figures it out eventually.
Okay.
That she then falls in love with the lookalike, and then they have a relationship is really weird.
Are we talking about twin or lookalike?
Lookalike.
That's nonsense. Dave wins.
It is nonsense. In some of the stuff, like some of their romance stuff is happening like right in the midst of the fact that she's learning that her husband, who she's been with forever, is on life support and probably going to die.
That's horrible. This is a terrible movie.
I mean,
it doesn't feel that way.
No, it doesn't.
Once you watch it, you'll
That's more insidious.
It's the weirdest thing.
Well, they do the movie thing where they set up the current president husband as a total complete philanderer jerk. In fact, he dies having sex with another woman. Right, that's how he dies. He dies on top of another woman, his secretary, in fact.
Right.
So like they do the whole setup where we don't care about that guy. Yeah, it's okay. Yeah. It's okay to wish that guy dead.
Yeah.
So the other very, very, very sinful part about Dave is that we're rooting for him to impersonate the president of the United States for his own personal goals.
Wow.
I understand that they're good goals. I understand the movie's like, hey, how cool is it that somebody who might actually, care is going to do the work? But he's impersonating the president. Now, at first, he is tapped to do that, and he's kind of brought in. And then, but by the end, it is completely his choice to pull the wool over, to be an unelected person of extreme power. And that's not okay, but the movie is saying it is very clearly.
That's interesting.
So I'm just saying Dave is not as unsinful as you might think, because those are two pretty big sins. Yeah. Daniel, do you want to add anything to the Dave conversation?
Yes. Well, my question is like, which crime is that? Because like that's like it's a capital offense. I mean, like it's not treason, is it? It's
you could argue treason, but you're more just it's a federal offense to impersonate a president, and it comes with pretty severe consequences. Which, by the way, his whole job is impersonating a president. But that's a parody thing, and
right.
that's different than actually saying you are the president.
It's like it's like a what do you call it? A happy Manchurian candidate situation.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. Because I mean, it's like a revolution or something. Like they subvert the national government, and then like it's kind of played for laughs.
Yeah, it's a coup.
It's a coup, and then like
it's
they
literally
play,
a coup,
and they're like, haha,
Gotcha.
It's just hijinks, and then he starts doing good deeds, so like you're kind of okay with it. It's incredibly ridiculous, and even comparing it to like a horror movie, like somehow it gets all those the horror movie tropes. It's somehow more ridiculous than supernatural like stuff, and so because I guess it's playing in a different reality, sort of. But
I guess you've also got the fact that he doesn't look like the president. He looks identical to the president. And what's sinful about that is maybe not that exists. Like, I mean, it is sinful because doppelganger, even like doppelgangers, you can, tell. If they're not identical twins, you can usually tell people apart.
Even identical twins.
Even identical twins have their tells, but as somebody who has family members who are identical twins that I can't tell apart, it is difficult with identical twins sometimes, but this is not usually difficult with doppelgangers. But what's more sinful about that is if somebody looked that much like the president, he wouldn't be opening up a Home Depot in Podunk, Iowa. You know what I mean? Like he would be pretty quick. National news. Like this guy looks exactly like the president of the United States.
It's like they have to be related genetically for that to happen.
Something like that. Yeah, it's so that is also really sinful. And then the other sinful part about, I'm convincing myself here, the other really sinful part about Dave is there's this stuff that happens when he's being president where he just like miraculously solves the budget crisis, where he's like,
wow,
guys, if we just sit in this room and we work this out, we can, Bill, do you really need that extra, $500,000 for defense? Like how much,
as if reasonable conversations like
correct,
that happen.
like, yes, this
that was,
this weird world where
everyone's a good person.
Everyone's a good person. And if you just, optimistic enough.
Yeah.
And this is coming from Mr. Optimism here. Like, I want the world to be that way, but I just don't think it is. And also, it's just not that simple either. Like, it's, the scalability of government is often the problem because it's just too complex. There's just too many factors.
You take $500 million away from defense, like people lose their jobs. Like there's a town that shuts down.
Right. Right. Yeah. At least it's not as simple as, hugs over guns, which I wish it was, but it's like, it's very complex, and it just, the movie wants to paint with that brush. I totally get it. It's what appeals to me about the movie. I love that mindset, but it's not realistic, and it's very sinful.
It's like House of Cards meets Mr. Rogers.
Yes. Thank you, Ian. For someone who's never seen the movie, you sum it up very well.
You painted it perfectly.
Ian, tell us a little bit about how sinful Jeepers Creepers is.
I'm beginning to think I don't like horror movies. We did have a run of like doing these horror movies, and I was just like, for me, it is the epitome of, without wanting to sound like we're doing real movie criticism, but what we're criticizing is that you can have unique, original kind of horror movies and movies in general, but horror films can be a very quick follow the formula, spend $10,000 because you make millions because it's a horror film. People will just show up to horror films, and there is very little incentive to make a big budget or even like kind of creatively thought out horror movie, because it's much easier to pump out 100 McDonald's burgers than it is this one gourmet beautiful thing. So, and Jeepers Creepers, although it is like well loved and in general just well revered by the horror community, it just didn't do it for me. It had every kind of trope of don't go in there, they go in there. Run away, they don't run away. Go to the police, you find the dumbest, most incoherent police officer that doesn't believe you even though they should believe you, and the second they believe you, they die. It kind of just has every single horror trope going, and I just got so mad when I was watching this movie and seeing it. Like, I watched it the first time.
People love this movie too.
I know they love it so much, and I'm happy to be on an island. I am, but I just got so tired of. And maybe in 2000 or whenever it came out, it was more groundbreaking. But this just feels like another dressed up demon person with a penchant for playing with its food before it eats it. And it is, by the time you get to the 90-minute mark, you're like, all of them die, please. I don't care. This should have been done ages ago. But there are just some moments where they just stand there and stare, mouths open, and it's like, run. At this point, you know what this demon does. I get it, shocking, but run, leave, just get out of there. And again, it just they say they won't do something, and then they do it, and they're scared of a thing until they're suddenly not scared and explore the thing. So this tunnel they have to go into is a great example. Like, I'm not going down there. I'm not going down there. I guess I'll go down there. For the dumbest reason as well. There's no reason for them to investigate what they're investigating. So maybe this has fewer unique sins than Dave, but it has some of the home run sins that I think we can do better.
I will talk a little bit about Jeepers Creepers, and then I'm going to go right into my vote. I think if this were just the usual horror tropes, just, basic versions of the usual horror tropes, I might vote Dave in this. However, these are some of the most egregious versions of those horror tropes I've ever seen. The
almost
fact
parody
that they almost die in this tunnel to the cave where all the bodies are. He has taken all these bodies and used it as interior decoration to wallpaper this cave, right? Which allowed me one of my favorite puns ever, cadaverns.
Yes.
So that was fun, at least. The fact that they get out of there with their lives, get to a city or whatever, find some stuff out about how much more dangerous this person might be, and then go back to that place alone for reasons.
Because they think the police won't believe them.
Because they think the police won't believe them is one of the most egregious versions of that trope I've ever seen. There's a different world where a horror movie actually gets beaten by Dave for most sin. This is not it, though. No. I'm voting Jeepers Creepers as the most sinful. Daniel, what about you?
I don't envy you here, Daniel, because this is like such a swing between genres as well.
Yeah, when I watching the video for Jeepers Creepers, the characters just being way too curious, the psychic or medium, whoever that doesn't gives only is like dripping information despite having a lot of information.
Yes. And then turns up at the end to tell them about the plot.
It's just, I'm gonna vote. I'm voting for Jeepers Creepers just based upon all of the sort of tropey cliches, and then just based on these characters that do things that are like so far-fetched to me. So even and I feel like Dave is just everything, like it's far-fetched, but there's a bit more of uniqueness to it, so I'm going Jeepers Creepers.
Ian?
Oh, it's clearly Jeepers Creepers. There was a point that notice board almost saved the movie for me, because that notice board has so many deliberate errors that I was like, oh, maybe this is Scream, and maybe this is like a parody and it knows what it's doing. But the movie that notice board is in doesn't go hard enough or doesn't embrace that.
Well, even the notice board isn't like a focus. It's you have to pause to read that stuff. It's not like it's being funny and the audience is supposed to get it.
No.
It's being funny for people on set.
Yes.
Yeah.
And nitpickers.
And nitpickers who pause movies.
But yeah, it has to be Jeepers Creepers. It is the most egregious version of what horror films do that annoy me.
All right, Jeepers Creepers will be moving on as the most sinful movie. The audience agrees 62 to 38%.
I hope it wins/loses.
If Dave had moved on, I can guarantee you it wasn't going to. It might have given the next one a battle, but it has just happened. Dave is one of those good movies that is so very sinful in a different world, if it matches up with somebody different in the first round, it might have actually had a chance to go a few rounds.
Nice.
But as it is, Jeepers Creepers will progress. All right, on to Top Gun versus Batman: The Long Halloween Part 2.
I'm ready to fight you, Daniel.
Ian and Daniel wrote with Chris on Top Gun. Jeremy and Jonathan writing on Batman. This is a 36 seed versus a 93 seed. Top Gun is clearly the favorite here with 149 sins. Batman: The Long Halloween Part 2 has 112 sins. Ian, you seem to want to say some things.
No, I say I'm gonna fight you, but I will fight you on a different argument. I haven't seen any of Batman: The Long Halloween, and I think this is gonna become a Minority Report versus Unstoppable situation where I think Top Gun is doing so much and has such a convoluted plan that I don't know where else this is gonna go, to be honest. I love Top Gun so much, and I love it because of its sins, and I love it because it has the just perfect amount of I don't care for me to just be along for the ride, and every rule of physics and reality and logic that it breaks is in service of making me go, yes, let's go. Ow, there is a TV that I've just elbowed. This damn thing.
One of the sins of Top Gun, and has made Ian hit a TV.
Yeah, add that to the list of sins. I'm not going to be able to say much more because Top Gun is fantastic. It has like some of the romance cliche sins as well. It has a overly complex plan that doesn't make a lot of sense when we break it down. Like, how much time did me, you, and Chris, Daniel, spend on that back and forth of the Maverick plan to get to the bunker and breaking it down into segments, and just there are 4 different layers that when you break them down.
This is the first. We're on the first Top Gun.
Oh no!
Yeah. This is the OG.
Aaron, why didn't you stop me?
Well, I was just you were hitting TVs.
Honest,
you were so excited.
Oh no!
Everything you said fit the first Top
Yes,
Gun.
it does.
Yes,
It still works. No, you're right. It still works, but I like it much less than Maverick.
It's the same movie.
It's not the same movie. Oh, okay. Never mind. Actually,
you just accidentally played into Daniel's views on Top Gun Maverick.
I did. Everything does apply, but I don't want people to think I like Top Gun because I didn't like it as much as Maverick. Anyway, Daniel.
Save Ian, Daniel.
I'm voting Top Gun.
Because, some of the stuff you're saying about like the romance, I feel like it's much more questionable in this movie.
It's way more questionable in Top Gun than it is Maverick. Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah.
There are a few sins that are just the product of the 80s in the first Top Gun.
This works on her.
Yeah. I did love Top Gun, both of them, and especially the first ones do hold a dear place in my heart. I did absolutely love this movie as a kid. It's upon revisiting that like some of the story problems present in terms of why Maverick is allowed to do anything ever, and like hasn't been court-martialed previously and his wings taken away because he seems to kind of do whatever he wants, and that seems to be the antithesis of what the military really wants from anyone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
much more of a what do you call it, premium on compliance. With the first Top Gun, like I said, a lot of the 80s stuff, like him going to like women's rooms is just like blatantly walking in and like somehow that being endearing as opposed to just like terrifying, in the sense that like that's very much like a male perspective of how you would want that to go. I think many more women would be disturbed by that than find it romantically appealing. Again, great. You can't really sin any of the practical stuff they did with the airplanes in the first Top Gun either. Like I think there's like some things that weren't what they did practical that you can sin, like the ejection scene is a bit questionable, like how that whole the accident with Goose plays out. Some of that looks a little wonky, that didn't hold up. That I don't think that flat spin in there was real. It didn't look real. So I've seen a plane in a flat spin. I don't think that was real. But I always thought that looked a little bit goofy when on screen. But like by the end of the movie, you still like love that mission. Like you're still like rooting for him, and like when it at the end of the movie, it's a very satisfying movie. I have not seen Batman, so I don't have a whole lot to add to that one.
Have any of us seen the Batman thing?
Nope.
I don't think so. So this will be a little bit of an interesting one. I will just say that the Top Gun for me is feels like an extremely sinful movie, if not just for the aging well, that kind of stuff. I just think it's really cheesy. Like I think the movie cheats a lot of its emotion by using tried and true tropes, and it feels tropey to me. Sometimes movies do a good job at, and maybe it's an aspect of filmmakers have gotten better at hiding their work on that stuff as time has gone on, but it feels very heartstring pulley on a lot of that stuff. So I think Top Gun is very, very sinful. Does anybody have any thoughts on Batman: The Long Halloween Part 2?
My instinct is that it should have been one movie, and I haven't seen either part.
Trying to think, I watched the Sins video, and it seemed like that there was a number of valid points. It wasn't like an overtly jokey script, so like I feel like there were things that they were pointing out. Did you? Have you guys not seen either part 1 or part 2?
No. Yeah. I from the Sins video, I think the most egregious thing was the time jump at the beginning where they skip a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it might be the only movie we sinned last year that I haven't seen. Was the Batman Long Halloween stuff. So yeah, is anybody gonna not vote for Top Gun as the more sinful movie here?
But just to coalesce my thoughts on Top Gun, I was surprised how much I loved Maverick because of how much Top Gun didn't hit me when I was sinning it. Right. I could appreciate the action and the fun and the hoorah, but it felt dated and cliched to me. And I was like, I wish I'd seen this as a child because it's hard to appreciate it in. 2021 was the first time I'd seen this movie. So to go into Maverick and just be like, I love this so much, I couldn't be more surprised.
Yeah. I'm voting Top Gun as the more sinful movie. What about you guys?
Yeah, Top Gun.
I mean, it doesn't matter now. I love what I say doesn't matter at all.
Go for Batman.
I'm going to vote for Batman.
Okay, there you go.
Not seeing.
Nicely done.
Just because.
Top Gun moves on to the next round. The audience agrees 69
nice
to 31.
My question is what the audience thinks, because what if there was like overwhelmingly it was
oh my goodness
it was like 10% Top Gun but 90% Batman.
All right, let's move on to Star Trek V, The Final Frontier, and that is going up against Dog.
A closer match than you think, being the only person who wrote
I don't know, they're 52 versus a 77. It's meant to be close. Star Trek V has 134 sins. Dog has 122 sins. Ian, you wrote on both of these, one with Jonathan, one with Jeremy. Which do you want to talk about first?
Dog, actually, interestingly. Dog is, I feel, very clear about what it wants to do and does it in possibly the most offensive way possible. On paper, Dog is like a home run. It is about this dog that is going to be retired and put to sleep because it's too violent, it can't be rehomed, and it's done its job. And not John Cena. No.
What?
No.
What are you talking about?
The main guy who isn't John Cena and is
he's also not a wrestler.
No, but he basically is. Channing Tatum. There we go.
He basically is.
Come on. And Channing Tatum doesn't like this dog either and is reluctantly sent on a mission across country, like a contrived. There is apparently nobody in the entirety of the military that can be trusted to transport this dog to a funeral other than this, the medically discharged soldier who just needs one more, like, kind of redemptive thing to do. And I get it. I love the message of they are both being retired for the same reasons. So there's a nice little symmetry there. But this character's a dick. He's such an arse, and he pretends to be blind. And then the movie calls him out for doing it, but I don't think it calls him out enough. Because he does it to get a free hotel room. And I know that there's a commentary here about how poorly we treat our veterans as well, but I don't think it tackles that sincerely enough or with enough kind of comedy to make it work for me. I don't know. Dog just it felt really difficult to root for John Cena in this movie.
Imagine it'd be very hard to root for John Cena in this movie.
Yes, that would be near impossible.
Yeah. No, it felt like it was a little bit almost hangover-y in like the buddy road tripness of it. And just kind of, it just fell apart for me. Super sinful.
Daniel, have you seen either of these? Both of these?
It's been a minute since I've seen Star Trek V. I have not seen Dog. Okay. But I've heard a lot about it. And it was, I think I did. I watched the video and talked about it on BTS actually. It sounds horrible. I mean, like you said, like the premise sounds good and like fun and like a mix of like wholesome and comedy and hijinks, but it looks like it just comes off like more disturbing than anything.
He gets really mad at the dog because it stops him from having a threesome with two like energy masseuses. I don't know what to do here. Because he locks the dog in the car while he goes off to have this threesome. And it doesn't get much better than that.
And for me, I mean, from what I remember, like I don't remember a whole lot of the sins from Star Trek, so you might have to like jog my memory on that. But seems hard for Dog to not be the more sinful movie, in my opinion.
What's really frustrating about Dog to me is that it completely blows what could be a really interesting movie because there is something pretty deep and meaningful about what this movie is trying to do, which I believe is to have these two characters, Channing Tatum and the dog, be similarly affected by their service. Yeah. Right? Like the idea that we can see Channing Tatum's emotional state in the emotional state of the animal, you know, is, I think, a really interesting kind of way to paint this and tell an interesting story and have a meaningful thing. I think that's what the movie was trying to do. I just think it fails in giving us, it seems like it wants to focus on the wrong things. Like it wants to focus on maybe not slapstick, but that kind of humor and silliness, and it just doesn't work as well than to shift into the more meaningful, deeper stuff, which almost feels right on the surface in this movie. It doesn't really feel like it wants to dig into him too much.
It's almost impressive how much it misses the target.
It sounds like it's like trying to be like a boys' trip, you know, like, but like it gets confused with the fact that there is like a power dynamic between like an animal and a human, where it's not like the dog is has as much agency in the world to just like to kind of like fuck off on its own and like it is sort of at his mercy in a lot of ways. So like it's not like they're not on the same level for them to be getting up into hijinks together.
He shouldn't be this mad at this dog. It feels really wrong.
Let's talk about Star Trek V. Ian.
Oh man, I'm gonna get absolutely murdered by the Star Trek community because it's the most notorious Star Trek film. It might be the most sinful piece of Star Trek content ever created. It is, but I still have fun with it, and it has a ridiculous mission that is still within itself. It is consistent as a movie if you separate it from the Star Trek. Damn TV, I just punched it again. If you remove it from like the Star Trek canon, almost, like I'm not going to sin it for doing something new inside of Star Trek and for putting God at the center of the galaxy and then how they have to get to it. Like there's loads of technical Star Trek canon stuff that makes this through the roof sinful. But as a movie with a group of people I enjoy going on a ride with, I still have a good time with it. And it's hard to sin sci-fi stuff and Star Trek stuff in particular for being kind of relying on technology, because the bug is the feature in this case. Like it's leaning on the same, transporters don't work and the shields aren't going to work for this specific reason or whatnot, but that's all kind of standard Star Trek stuff. I still, bottom line, I still have fun with these people. It's still a fun adventure. I don't think it's as egregious as Dog, which is hard to say.
Well, I guess we know where your vote's going then.
Yeah, sorry.
Daniel, did you have any further thoughts for Star Trek V?
Yeah, I don't really feel like I can add too much because it's been so long since I've seen it that it's not even clear in my mind. I guess I don't have as much for as much Star Trek as I've seen. Like, I guess I'm not as like beholden to the canon stuff as people. Maybe I don't.
You can say as Ian.
Yeah, as Ian. Well, I mean, more broadly as like as the serious fans, and so it's like my credibility here is at stake as a Star Trek fan. So, but I don't see it being as bad as Dog.
Well, I do. I think Star Trek V is terrible.
It is.
I didn't say it wasn't terrible.
Yeah, it is terrible.
But I think some of the most sinful stuff in Star Trek V is just how poorly it fits together for me. Like, I feel like there's a real... Look, I like Shatner. Like, I'm an OG fan. I like Kirk. I don't think he's a good director. Like, I feel like he is missing some of the nuance that comes with how you tell a story, how you get to places. The only things I like about this movie are just I like these characters. Yeah. And that's just, that's a really sinful movie when the only thing that's not sinful is that I like hanging out with these people. Which, listen, I've loved movies for less, for sure. But sounds like I'm in the minority, but I am voting Star Trek V as the more sinful movie. Ian, what is your official vote?
It's so hard. I don't know how I can be expected to separate my Star Trek bias. Like, I've been.
You're not expected to. You are not expected to. You are expected to subjectively say which is the more sinful movie.
You need to keep this pause in the podcast.
It's not happening.
Okay. Dog.
All right, and the deciding vote from Daniel.
Dog.
All right.
It's hard, isn't it?
That is officially an upset. Dog will move on as the more sinful movie. The audience, 58-42, said Star Trek V.
That was closer than I thought it was going to be by the audience.
58-4. Well, here's the thing. Dog is a very sinful movie.
It is.
It really is. It is. I think it's what's weird is it's so close to being a really good movie. Like, they're just a few tweaks.
And I think that's what annoys me the most is that it goes from this commendable message to just shit.
I don't feel that strong. I think I like Dog more than you, and I don't.
I guarantee it.
I genuinely. It's not. I'm not a huge dog fan. That's not true. I love dogs.
No, you live with dogs all the time.
All the time. Everybody brings me their dogs. All right, so let's move on to the next one. No Time to Die versus Spy.
I love this.
This is a 45 versus an 84. Ian, you wrote on Spy. And Daniel and I didn't write on either of these. 137 sins for No Time to Die, 117 sins for Spy. Daniel, which of these have you seen?
I've seen Spy.
Okay.
I have tried to watch No Time to Die on multiple occasions, and for something about that movie, just I have turned it off, and that's like a weird thing.
You have
to say.
no time for No Time.
I have
to
no
Die.
time for No Time. I can't. I just have not. I've decided on multiple occasions that I'd rather be doing something else than waiting for this story
That sounds pretty sinful then.
to get where
interesting
where I'm looking for it to go. I don't. Yeah, so I can't really say anything. I feel like Spy is a pretty sinful movie as well.
Well, Ian, talk about Spy since you wrote on it.
I hate this movie. It's it's another one of these where I just missed it. I just missed the humor. I love the heck out of Jason Statham being Jason Statham in this movie, but everyone else feels like just a cliche, almost like Paul Blart Mall Cop sort of thing, where it's look at the unassuming spy do the things, and twist upon twist upon twist upon betrayal, predictableness, convenienceness. Just didn't do it for me. None of the jokes land. None of the sincere moments feel sincere. Melissa McCarthy is funny, is a funny person, and I like watching her, but there's something about this movie that just rubbed me the complete wrong way. And it's not necessarily like the plan stuff or the villainous machinations. It's just the beats completely missed me. It's been a while since I've seen it now.
I watched Go this weekend. Have you ever seen Go?
No.
This is like 2001. Sarah Polley, who just won an Oscar for the screenplay for Women Talking.
Mm-hmm.
She's one of the stars in it. As
like a rave.
Yeah, it's kind of like a rave crime, Rashomon, but not Rashomon style. Not exactly Rashomon style, but like different stories, intersecting kind of thing. And it's really interesting. It's really fun. But Melissa McCarthy shows, like really young Melissa McCarthy shows up in this movie and just kind of shocked me. It's interesting to watch people's careers and to see how they become these comedic super forces. And Spy is a movie that is made based on the star power of Melissa McCarthy and her ability to make people laugh. And
but I don't think she's given an opportunity to make people laugh. I think
it works. I think I mean, you don't like comedy, so you just don't like to laugh.
That is true. That is true. I don't like to laugh or cry. That's why Dog and Spy misses me completely. Yeah, okay. That's my thoughts on Spy.
Yeah. Let's see, Daniel, did you have any further thoughts on Spy?
I guess these aren't like necessarily sins, but like some of the comedy dude does, like it gets so silly, like
for sure.
It doesn't feel like it's like in terms of like parodying a spy movie, like I don't know, I just it might just be not my thing. So it's like I don't want to say like penalize the movie just for that and say consider it a sin, but it feels pretty annoying when I'm watching it on screen sometimes.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, actually. I felt annoyed.
Ian, you, I believe, have some thoughts on No Time to Die.
Yeah, no, I didn't write on it, but I have seen it and really enjoyed it. It's not my favorite of the Craig movies. It has some of the most ridiculous puzzle pieces that fall together in order to get Bond to where he needs to be. Most of all, the bomb at the grave site for Eva Green.
Very sinful.
Almost an immediate win just based on that. Just how did the villain villainizing everything and how the villain's plan works is probably the topmost sinful villain's plan of 2022, I think that's pretty fair to say. However, I love where this story goes and I love what they do. There are some unique Bond bits in there. I think they stick the landing completely. There was some stuff in this Bond movie that I hadn't seen in other Bond movies, and I think that's a really cool trick to pull off when you have some of the expectations and staples of a Bond film. I am a big Bond fan, though, not about his womanizing, but in general, I'm a huge fan of Craig's Bond in particular.
That's my favorite part. That's the reason I couldn't get into the movie. I was like,
not enough misogyny. Not
enough chest hair in this film.
I don't mean that. That's a joke, everyone.
Yes, cut that out, Aaron. But I think it's a really fun action movie with some unique bits. It did kind of annoy me. It took this long to kind of get the cast together. Like, it took 4 movies to get this team of people this team of people together that I really enjoy hanging out with. And the humorous moments really hit me as well. This film didn't make me anywhere near as mad, but because of the length, I'm certain it has more sins, but I'm not going to reveal whether I think it's less sinful, as Aaron throws me a look.
No, I was just trying to keep you from abusing the television in the room anymore. You just keep hitting it.
Yeah.
I really like No Time to Die.
Yeah.
I think there's some things about it that I think it is my favorite Craig. I think it's willing to do some things that the others aren't. I feel like it ties together some things that were very hard to tie together, and it manages to do it well. And I think it's a great Craig performance, and I like the mystery. I like how the structure and solution of the mystery. Having said all that, it is very sinful. All Bond movies are in some way or another, and that's kind of the point. I also like Spy more than you guys do, I think. I laughed quite a bit. I do think Melissa McCarthy is really funny. But I'll kick off the voting. I think Spy is the more sinful movie. I think it's cheating more than No Time to Die is. So Spy is my vote. Daniel, why don't you go next?
I'm going with Spy as well.
All right.
I just think that you can't, if you're making fun of the genre of a spy genre, I feel like you kind of have to play in those same tropey cliche moments as like every spy film. So I feel like it's a consequence of being that it just has to be sinful.
Yeah. Ian?
Yeah, it's Spy. I think it's lazily sinful, whereas No Time to Die is complicated sinful.
Mm-hmm. Sure. That is an upset. That is the 84 seed beating the 45 seed because No Time to Die has 137 sins and Spy has 117 sins.
So wrong.
Well, that's the seeding. Listen, blame the committee. So the
but that you also said was sort of probably a consequence of the length of the film.
Yeah, absolutely could be. By the way, audience also disagrees. 54% said No Time to Die is the more sinful movie.
Oh.
So second time we've gone against the audience on this one, but it will be Spy moving on to the next round.
Can I just add one thing?
Sure.
I think that's actually an unexpected, probably pretty interesting double feature. No Time to Die.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is one of the better double features.
Yeah.
What is not a great double feature is the original 1940 Pinocchio and Final Destination.
You say that. Have you done it?
Listen, you know very well I do really strange triple features every single weekend. So I've done similar things for sure. Pinocchio, the original 1940 version, Daniel, you wrote on that with Jeremy. Final Destination, I don't think any of us wrote on that. They are very close in sins. This is a 60 seed versus a 69 seed. And it's 131 sins versus 126 for Final Destination. Wow. So Pinocchio, the slight favorite here. Daniel, since you wrote on Pinocchio, why don't you kick us off with some thoughts?
I never really liked Pinocchio as a person. It was not one of my favorite movies growing up as a kid. There's a lot of, it's an older movie, and so it's like as a modern sensibility judging it, but there is like some like Pinocchio is not nearly as much of a hero in this as you think he is. He kind of causes a lot of trouble and then kind of wins at the end anyway, even after kind of wreaking havoc and changing lives, but it's all okay, sort of, which is kind of a weird thing. Everyone's really negligent. Geppetto is just kind of like this boy's like 1 day old, not even, and sends him off into the world with absolutely no like education or instructions. He just gives him a book. We don't even know what kind of book it is. And then the fairy also is like, here's life, and good luck with that, and here's a cricket to look after you. So his credentials are questionable as to whether or not he should be in charge of a child's life as well. I think that good things to say. I think the animation holds up. It's a classic. So I don't know. I think it's earned all the sins that we gave it. I don't know.
Have you seen Final Destination, Daniel?
Yes, I have.
Ian, have you seen both of these movies?
I have, yes.
Okay. What are some of your thoughts on these movies?
Pinocchio, it's fine. It's classic Disney, kind of A to B to C, bad parent, bad child, and yet they all win the day, just like Daniel said. I do have fun with it. Like the musical numbers are really fun to me. I Have No Strings just gives me all of the giggles, and I really, really enjoy it. It's been so long since I've seen it though. but it does have the classic, from what I remember, the classic Disney fairy tale sins. If this happened in the real world, everybody would be arrested and nobody would have a child at the end of this movie. It does have a moral about not lying, even though that kind of maybe doesn't stick the landing.
And also wasn't the point of this story.
No.
Yeah, so, yeah.
That's it's a pretty simple movie.
I agree. I think it's simple and sinful, but I do enjoy it. Final Destination, I enjoy more for different reasons. I think if I were picking my favorite, I would pick Final Destination over this. I think it's one of the few horror franchises that came right out of the gate with a complete understanding of what it was. And it's just so coherent in tone. Is it sinful? Sure, of course it is. It's a horror movie. There's definitely, it's interesting with Final Destination because I almost give it a little bit of a pass on some of the horror contrivance because it's kind of built into the concept. You know what I mean? Like
you can't sin it for being convenient because it's meant to be.
It's meant to be, right? Like the Rube Goldbergian stuff is meant to be a part of what goes on. So I don't know at the end of the day that it's really all that actually sinful. But what do you guys think about Final Destination?
I feel pretty similar. I'm not a huge horror fan, but I do remember being very captivated by this when it first came out. Like the concept was something I hadn't really encountered before. I will say, just to add to, like, because I've seen movies where like there are mechanisms that are written into it that create convenience, but it does not stick the landing in the way that this does. And I think that's like, I don't think you really can sin that here because it's so baked in. Like
it's like Bullet Train. It's like trying to sin convenience in Bullet Train. It's like the whole point of the movie. Yeah.
But I feel like Bullet Train doesn't do it as well for some reason. Like I just feel like it's like,
well, Bullet Train doesn't have a chance to it. Malevolent force that's creating it. It's that we know of. Correct. Yeah.
It feels more added in as opposed to like it being like if somehow like Bullet Train was more centered around that. I mean, maybe it's supposed to be, and maybe I think it's
definitely supposed to be, but yeah,
I don't know. Didn't feel like it felt like it was much more about the revenge story, and like this idea of fate and chance was living in that world. But it felt like it became more of just a mechanism to allow things to happen.
Yeah.
As opposed to like a mechanism that like made things happen. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's kind of how I see it.
Ian, go ahead and give your thoughts on Final Destination and your vote.
I love this franchise. It might be my favorite horror franchise next to Saw. I love the Rube Goldberginess of it, like you said. And yeah, making the bugger feature is a really smart idea, and it does make it tricky to sin. But overall, I am going to vote with Final Destination because
as the more sinful movie.
Because it still has the horror tropes. It still has the stuff it leans on for me.
I think Pinocchio is the more sinful movie. Daniel, break the tie.
I'm going with Pinocchio.
All right. Wow. Pinocchio.
Wow, guys.
Which, was the favorite in this match, but wins 2-1. The audience disagrees. The audience 54-46, very close, said that Final Destination should have been the more sinful movie. That makes 3 times we have gone against the audience. Please keep listening. On to menu. The menu.
The menu.
Nope.
Yeah. Rise of Gru. The menu.
Minions, The Rise of the Menu, and The Breakfast Club, which also should have a menu at every meeting. So yeah, this is a mismatch. The Minions, The Rise of Gru is the 28 seed. Breakfast Club is 101. 165 sins for Minions, The Rise of Gru. Only 104 for The Breakfast Club. Daniel, you wrote on both of those. Which one's the most sinful?
Let's see. there's more things going on in Minions by far in terms of a story. Like the Breakfast Club very much is this encapsulated thing. There, like the plot is detention, and like that's what we experience. So I'm feeling I think that Minions, just in terms of the story that it's built upon, has a lot more issues with it.
Ian, have you seen both of these movies?
I have seen both of these movies.
What do you think? What makes them sinful?
There's being a Minions movie. Well, the fact that the Minions movie isn't a Minions movie, it's a Despicable Me movie.
It really is
the number one sin.
Yeah.
I got so mad when I watched this movie in the theatre because I think more than any other Minions movie, it leans on Minions doing dumb things and very little in terms of story and originality. I think it's the clear win here. The Breakfast Club has lots of sins when it comes to misogyny and the 80s and beautifying the alternative student because nobody can love her unless she's in a dress and wears lipstick. That's worth a bajillion sins. But Minions is just it feels mean to call it lazy, but it does feel like you can't lose. We'll just put the Minions in this thing doing cute things, and it doesn't matter. And it's just the same old jokes, beat by beat.
Yeah. The main sin of the Breakfast Club is like, look at all these different people from this diverse group of students who have to learn to get together, and they're all white, attractive.
Yeah,
and
right.
Like, yeah,
diverse.
okay, yeah. Let's re-talk about diversity. Yeah, I think the Breakfast Club is extremely sinful. I don't know how you beat Minions: Rise of Gru, though. And I'm not even saying there aren't things to enjoy in the Minions movies. They're just not things that I generally enjoy, and they aren't. What makes them so sinful to me is they're structured like a series of vaudevillian acts or something. You know what I mean? Like there's just not a lot of story structure that is prioritized. Is there a story there? Of course there is. But it's really just about, seeing minion butts and, making minion jokes and playing off of stuff that was tired in the last Despicable Me / Minions movie. So I think the Minions: Rise of Gru is more sinful. That will be my vote. Daniel, what's your vote?
Minions.
And Ian, your
Minions.
All right. So the Minions with a sweep there. The audience, by the way, agrees and says 77% to 23%.
Nice.
The Minions is the more sinful movie. Moving on to Red Notice versus Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home. Ian, you wrote on both of these, so talk a little bit about what makes them sinful.
One of these movies is perfect and the other is Red Notice. I don't know, man. I'll do both at once. Star Trek IV is ridiculous. It has so many sins.
Yes, it does.
All right, come on. It has a plot that is beyond shoehorned. Like, can you imagine you've had the Wrath of Khan, where spoiler, Spock dies, the Search for Spock, where they bring him back, and then what are we going to do for the fourth movie? Let's go back in time and rescue some whales, people. Let's go. But it is so much fun once you get past the conceit of the story. It's so much fun and it's so ridiculous. And yes, it has the biggest cliche sin for me is the fish out of water. Isn't it funny that these people don't know how money works?
Literal fish out of water.
Literal fish out of water.
Actually, they're mammals.
Shut up. They don't know. They don't know how money works. They managed to find the USS Enterprise in boat form. It has so much, but I think it is in service of a fun story. Red Notice.
Well, before you go into Red Notice, okay. I will go ahead and tell us this now. I won't save it for later. Audience vote 50-50.
Yes.
Right down the middle.
Wow. So, get it.
So go ahead with Red Notice.
Red Notice, it did warm on me. The first watch, I didn't enjoy it. The second watch, while sinning, bizarrely, I appreciated it more, mainly for the Ryan Reynolds-ness of it. I think it might be impossible for me unless he shifts genres into something really offensive, it might be impossible for me to not enjoy a movie that he's in. But I did not enjoy Gal Gadot so much. Who's the other person in this movie? Is it The Rock?
It's The Rock.
It's The Rock. Did not enjoy The Rock in this movie. And it in terms of sinfulness, it is betrayal on betrayal on betrayal. And I just got tired and eye-rolly by the end. And it is a movie that has a fun ride, but it like just frames this big reveal at the end, and it just bugs the watches off of me when movies build me up to a big reveal at the end, which makes so much of the rest of the movie on a rewatch not make sense. When you know The Rock and Gal Gadot were in it together all along, it breaks many, many parts of this movie. Voyage Home just gets better every time you watch it.
Daniel, what are some of your thoughts? Have you seen both of these?
Yeah. I didn't. Yeah. I don't like the Voyage Home. I don't know. I never really liked any of the Star Trek like episodes or whatnot where they travel back in time. I don't know. It's not why I tuned into Star Trek. But,
it's okay to not like fun. It's okay.
Says the guy who didn't like Spy.
yeah. Point proven.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, yeah, I guess that's not really like a sinful thing. That's just really my opinion on it. But Red Notice, I didn't. I watched it. I never really got into it. It never really pulled me into the story that much. I guess it's sort of a fun film. All the twists about who's betraying who really also annoyed me.
It's one of the most sinful things about Red Notice, I think, is the character consistency with their motives. There are many times in the movie where if you know what you know at the end, stuff they're deciding to do doesn't match up their motives, you know, throughout the movie. It's not super egregious. Like you can it's argumentative. Like you could find a way to say this is why they make this decision. But it is eye-rolly, at least, or a little bit head-noddy, you know. So head-noddy, not naughty. Just
head-noddy, yes.
Yeah. And as much fun as Ryan Reynolds is, I feel like Ryan Reynolds being Ryan Reynolds has to be like a cliche or something.
Oh yeah, no, it's a cliche.
Like it's an enjoyable cliche. Like I'll keep watching it, but I feel like that's a pretty big sin.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I'm sure for some people they're tired of his shtick. I'm positive of it. It's very much, there's a sameness to it. I don't know that I could get tired of it. I find it so amusing and charismatic. Like I am so drawn to that whole thing he does, and have been since Two Guys, a Girl, and a Pizza Place. Like that's where I fell in love with him because of that whole thing, and he's just made a career of that, you know, basically one note. So yeah. All right, well, I think The Voyage Home is a little bit silly, but it's also really fun.
A little.
It's interesting because I have enjoyed watching it. It's not that I don't enjoy watching it, but the second you step out of it and start thinking about it, it gets so like, what are we even doing here? How is this the fourth Star Trek movie? Like, what is happening here?
It might be the most sins I've had to cut from a script because me and Jeremy just wrote an atrocious amount.
Yeah. But I'm also very aware of Red Notice's sins as well, as we've mentioned them. This is a really hard one for me, as it was apparently for the audience.
To be fair, you don't know that. It could have been very easy for the audience.
Correct.
They just happened to be 50-50.
Correct. It is the Rotten Tomatoes conundrum.
Yeah.
Daniel, let's start with you. What's your vote?
I'm voting for Red Notice. Yeah.
Red Notice is the most sinful for Daniel. I'm going to go with Star Trek 4. If Daniel had said Star Trek 4, we'll never know. Would I have gone with Red Notice? Ian, it comes to you.
Yeah, this actually makes me feel better about voting for Dog earlier, because I'm going to vote for Red Notice categorically here.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the more sinful.
Red Notice will move on as the more sinful movie. Let's go on to the next one. Old versus Greenland.
Wow.
This is a fun matchup. One 33 for Old, 122 for Greenland. Old is the favorite here, 53 seed. Let's see, Daniel, you and Ian wrote on Greenland. So let's just start there. What made this Greenland sinful for you guys?
I think it's it's the whole disaster movie cliche is a sinful thing about it. I would say in terms of that, the perspective on it I think was refreshing. Like it wasn't like this big like macro view where you have like all these players. Like they stayed with like that one character, and I thought that was that made it more enjoyable and made it less tired than I think it would have been as like a disaster film if it didn't do that. Some of the title of the movie is I think is
Why does this make
it's like where just like think of a different movie where they end up at a place and then just name that movie that, and like that's so that's a thing. Like there's like a lot of things in terms of like how we get there, like the impractical like plane ride that they take, a lot of nick of time convenience sort of things. A lot of airports. I don't know if you don't like going to the airports. I think that could be a sin. That's a bit of a joke. Sorry. Yeah. So
Boy,
that's how I feel about Greenland. Yeah, I don't have anything else to add to Greenland.
Ian?
I think that Gerard Butler does a great job, actually.
It kind of sums it up for me. There's not much to sin in this movie because there's not like bloody much happens. I do love this.
The whole world blows up. Not a lot.
I do love the take on following these essentially two people. Wait, is he with his kid the whole? Is it just Gerard?
They get separated.
No, they get separated.
separated.
Yeah, but it's a very one family pursuit, which I will take that over the moon falling on everyone all day long in terms of my disaster movies. But I think the imagination kind of stops there for me. It then becomes, it has the cliche of the kind of problematic father figure that is trying to prove himself, and they're all happy and lovey at the end because the world ending is more important than relationships not working out. I just found myself drifting a lot through this film, and while I like the idea of it being a more focused story, I think it does still have the tropes of the obstacles that get in the way, the convenient ways they get around them, the stupid diabetes bag medicine that gets left behind that never should have been left behind because the kid does the one thing that they're told not to do, and it has a lot of those disaster movie tropes and sins.
Boy, as the father of a child with diabetes, let me just say the many times the kid did the one thing they weren't supposed to do and left the diabetes stuff behind is greater than 5.
Just because that doesn't make it not a trope. That just means it's a trope that you live.
You're not wrong. I'm just saying it's felt real.
Yeah.
In fact, all the diabetes stuff in this feels really real to me. I actually appreciated that about this movie. Is they clearly had somebody on,
that was clear,
who either had a kid or was very familiar with how all of that works. But yeah, it's got a lot of tropey convenience in it. I would compare it in some ways to Unstoppable in that way. It's just most of the sins are really just the normal convenience kind of sins that happen in a movie that has to go like this. I really liked it. I also really liked Old, though, and we'll transition into kind of talking about that for a little bit. And I know not everybody does. I think Old was kind of where I really made peace with M. Night and was just like, oh, okay, I see what's going on here. I'm starting to figure out that M. Night is an auteur more than a director who can do a lot of different things, right? And I think he just has a real certain specific style that I think we forgive in his early movies because they felt so fresh and different. But in his later movies, we're more likely to go, that feels like stilted dialogue to me. That feels like, over the top, insanely blatant metaphoring. But he's always done that. He's always done that. And I'm not saying that every one of his movies is the same. I'm saying that he has those tendencies. They've always been there, and maybe he's giving into them more now. That seems likely. And I think that's where Old gets really sinful for me, is that M. Night's tendencies themselves are sinful. However, I've kind of found peace with them and just been able to go into a movie like this and go, tell me a bedtime story. You know, tell me the story the way you want to tell it.
A terrifying bedtime story.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens. So I like Old more than most, I think, but it is very sinful. Thoughts on Old from you guys?
I have not seen Old.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't really add too much.
I was pretty high on Old when I watched it. My memory has deteriorated over time of it, and I think Knock at the Cabin in the Woods may have hurt that as well. I'm liking M. Night less the more of his movies that I watch. I did like what Old was doing, but I am a sucker for time travel and time dilation and things acting weird. For me, I loved that there was a very clear mystery in this movie, and then it was getting to the bottom of the mystery, and oh crap, how do we get out of here before we're too old to do so? So I did enjoy it, but that's still the dialogue. It is hard for me to get by, and the clumsy metaphors is tricky for me to
I don't think
not
they're clumsy.
roll out.
I just think they're obvious.
Okay, fair enough.
I also think it's important to mention that Old is very cinnable on its concept. Like, there are so many things that should have happened differently based on its own stated rules of the universe. There are, in one instance, because of the way time dilation happens, it doesn't happen for... I'm specifically thinking of wounds versus giving birth. Like, those are two very, unfortunately, similar experiences in many ways, and yet one of them was treated differently than the other. There are just so many things that weren't fully, thought out.
And again, the villain's plan
to the concept
is ridiculous.
It's kind of great, though. I kind of love it. But you're right. Listen, my vote is not a hard one for me. I think Old is the more sinful movie, even though I really like it. What about you, Ian?
Yeah, it's Old. It's Old. That ambitious a concept, it does have to be Old.
Daniel?
Interesting. I feel like had I watched it, I probably would vote Old.
You would.
But I'm voting Greenland.
All right. Old will move on. The audience agrees. 65% said Old was more sinful than Greenland. All right, last one, guys. We're going to finish off with Shark Tale versus Love and Monsters, which was a Sin Club video. So the favorite here is Shark Tale with 138 sins. Love and Monsters has 117. Daniel, you wrote on both of these, so talk about how they are sinful.
Yeah, so we have Shark Tale is like animated movie and like the basic premise is that the shark is killed accidentally, and this fish takes responsibility for it because it makes him a celebrity, and it's a shark tale. There's a lot of weird humor in this that is like seemingly more directed at adults, but almost like doesn't land, which was kind of like an odd thing. There's a strange shark fart that they include.
I believe those are called sharts. Oh no, wait, no, that's something else.
So it has its issues, but like it's an animated kids. Love and Monsters, I think, on the other hand, was more. I think I might be leaning towards Love and Monsters. There's a lot of basic premises. The world's ended. It's a very cool premise, by the way. Like I think that in terms of originality, Love and Monsters is much more of an original movie than Shark Tale is. But I think in some of that in the originality of the story, they basically set up this journey in which a lot of convenient things need to happen for the hero to be the hero. And but I would say Love and Monsters is a more fun film, but I think that a lot of like just a lot of pretty much everything surrounding everything that needs to happen for the main character to get from point A to point B is just super convenient, and like a lot of cliches. They do subvert some things, like with like the love story is not what you think it's going to be exactly, and things like that.
Which is kind of the biggest sin of the movie as well.
Yeah. Actually, yeah. What do you think, Ian, on Love and Monsters?
I had a lot of fun with Love and Monsters. I really liked it. I actually thought it was, I agree, pretty original given the conceit, and I much prefer. It is a disaster movie, but I really prefer living before or after the disaster rather than during it. I really enjoy that. And I love the world building in it as well. I love his little book of monsters. I think that's clever. But it is super sinful.
So much convenience.
His motivation for embarking on the journey is a ridiculous sin that maybe you can give a pass because young people, but all of the coincidence. This kid dies in anything that vaguely resembles the real world. He is dead within minutes, but is saved by the universe.
Yeah.
And it's so sinful. It is hard to go along with the adventure when you know he should be dead.
Yeah, no, I absolutely hear you. Have you seen Shark Tale, Ian?
When it came out in the theaters and not since.
Man, that was 2000, early 2000s?
3, 4,
yeah,
something like that. I was teens, yeah.
Wow.
Early teens.
Wow. Yeah, I haven't seen Shark Tale in a while either, but I do remember thinking it was terrible. Like I remember just feeling like that its biggest sin might be how much it flubs Will Smith's natural charisma. Mm-hmm. I just feel like it's not there in the character the way I want it to be.
The character is not very likable.
No, not at all. And so that to me is a pretty huge one.
Did this have Car Wash in it? Was that the big song for this movie?
I believe so. There's a big whale wash.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't remember what song they used, but
it's the only thing I remember.
It was like an updated version. It wasn't.
Yeah, and Will Smith has
the
a
original
rap in
Car
it,
Wash.
I think. Yeah.
That's a
that
sin.
sums it up.
Love and Monsters, like you said, is also very sinful, but I think there is a consistency to those sins that it doesn't feel like the movie is being sinful in the amount of ways that Shark Tank is. So I would like to make an offer of $1 million for 20% of the sins. I have no idea what that means, but
that's a big valuation on the company.
I am voting for Shark Tank as the more sinful. Daniel, what about you?
Yeah, I'm voting for Shark Tank as well. Might as well just be Shark Tank.
Ian.
I'm voting for Donald Trump.
I'm going to cut that one out.
No. Amazing. Shark Tale, but I feel bad voting for it, having not seen it.
Yeah. All right. There you go. Shark Tale. We'll move on. The audience agrees. 62%.
Nice.
Said that it should. Well, there you go. There are the matchups for today. We have settled 11 more. There are 2 more episodes in the first round, and these will continue to come out weekly. And again, pay attention to challenge.com/2022 Sins Battle, or Sin Battle. Sorry, not plural. Sin Battle is that website. It will also be in the description where you can make your votes and see how the rounds are progressing. The full bracket is there. You can print off your own bracket, do the whole thing if you want. Vote for the whole thing. But that is there, and some new ones progressing. And I will also say, because of the odd number of videos, there are a lot of movies in round 2 that we will not have talked about in round 1. In fact, I think there are 24 movies that got a bye. I I could be wrong about that. Let me check. I can look at that. 20.
I don't know what any of the words you just said meant.
There are 20 movies that start in round 2.
That doesn't sound right.
So here's how it works with seeding. When you seed a large tournament, the top seeds, because they've earned it, they don't have to play till round 2.
Interesting.
So that it can even itself out and eventually, have a champion.
Got it.
Unless you have a perfect, what is it, square of, unless it's 64, 128, 256, like unless you hit those numbers, there's going to be some weirdness. So yeah, we haven't even talked about the top 20 seeds yet.
That's pretty cool. That's
fun. Those will all happen in round 2. So yeah, stay tuned for all of that fun. And I think that's going to wrap it up for Behind the Sins this week. Don't forget to make sure you're subscribed. Go ahead and leave a comment or rating as well. You can hang out with us on Twitter at Cinemasins BTS. So for Ian Whittington, Daniel Cardoso, a suddenly damaged television, and myself, we will see you next week.
It's pronounced Danielle.
Danielle.
Thanks for listening. Send any feedback to bts@cinemasins.com and be sure to subscribe, rate, and comment. Find more ways to connect by visiting cinemasins.com/BTS.
Wow. That's the last outtake right there. Guess we found our last outtake, guys. No context either. Not leaving in any context.
No. Ian, we need a meeting. Whatever could it be, Jeremy and Chris?
What I'll do is I'll put the context first in the outtakes and then let people piece it together.
Beautiful. So for context, what you're about to hear is completely untrue and something Aaron made me say. In unrelated news, can I please take the BTS edit? Ethan, you don't have to put on the pink light.
What's the pink light?
The pink light?
The red light was already the pink light.
We know what the pink light is.
Yeah, but the red light was already the pink light.
No. This is the pink light.
All right, Ian. You're going to have to explain. We're all adults here.
Nope.
That has happened live on video before.
It's amazing.
What's even more amazing is, by the way, if this is in the outtakes,
wait, Aaron, you're the one editing. You can choose if it's in the outtakes.
You know what? Quit breaking the reality.
Sorry.
Whoever's editing this, if this is in the outtakes. No, my thing in the background fell off.
Yes.
Last time this happened was during a live show as I was talking about how unfit my studio was put together because I had just changed everything. And at the end of that sentence, this fell off the wall. It was amazing.
You just had it on a bit of string, surely, and pulled it off. I'm pleading for that photo frame to fall off your wall as well now, Daniel, just to suddenly crash.
I don't think that's likely.
It's real glass. It would probably it would kill me live on air.
But we should do this show live.
All of a sudden, we're in one of those Screen Life movies where the whole horror movie takes place in a Zoom call.
Yes.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I have yet to watch one of those yet. I feel like they were too close to home, so I was like,
yes,
I couldn't do it. Not even the horror part, just I was like, I don't want to watch people on a Zoom call. I think that was mostly the reason.
That's fair.
I just scream immediately, like nothing's happened on screen. I just see Facebook. I'm like, ah!
Exactly. That's exactly correct.
That's the plot of every one of those movies.
Ian, say funny stuff so I have some stuff for the outtakes.
Oh, you got loads of funny stuff. I mean...
Already?
Yeah, there was that whole 15-minute thing that you muted where I talked about the llama that walked into my bedroom, but it was actually your son Ethan in a llama costume that it just caught me off guard. But it was weird because he was like mooing, so I didn't really know what was in my room.
Yeah.
But he brought me breakfast, which was great.
Did he carry it with his teeth?
No, it was weird. He was carrying Jen, who was carrying the breakfast.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I don't get treated like this. That's amazing.
I mean, I can arrange it.
Here's a woman and a breakfast.
I'm afraid the llama costume didn't survive. We'll just end that story there. I did read Cat in the Hat for the first time.
Wait, what?
Yes. True story. Never read Cat in the Hat. Never read a Dr. Seuss book in my life. They're great.
A single Dr. Seuss book?
Never read
Is it
Dr.
just not a thing in England?
I mean, it might. I think my parents just never read to me. That's why I'm so ignorant.
But not even in school or anything?
Yeah,
I feel like...
never in school. Nope. No, we exclusively read Dickens and Shakespeare from the age of 4 onwards.
Please, sir, may I have another novel?
Yep.
You have Dr. Seuss experience, I'm sure.
Yeah, like, all the places you'll go, green eggs and ham.
Yeah. One fish, two fish?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not a one.
Yertle the turtle? Man.
You're just making up words now. That's not an actual story.
Well, I think that's what Dr. Seuss did.
Yes.
I think that is the key.
Isn't the Grinch Dr. Seuss?
It is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you had at least seen like the original reading of Seuss on like the animated Grinch. Like
I had never watched The Grinch.
Now I think you're lying.
No,
now
hand to deity. I have never watched The Grinch.
Hand on heart, 7 sizes too small.
Yes, I'm assuming that's a Grinch reference.
Okay, so you finally read Cat in the Hat.
Yep, and Cat in the Hat Part 2, The Vengeance.
Oh, yes. I like Cat in the Hat 2. That's the one with Thing 1 and Thing 2, right?
They're both with Thing 1 and Thing 2.
Okay, all right. Yeah,
No, sorry. Number 1 has Thing 1 and Thing 2.
Okay.
The second one doesn't, but it has the cat in a hat, in a hat, in a hat,
Yes,
in a hat,
that's what it is. It's the
in a hat.
recursion. That's what I loved about the second one was the recursion. Yeah.
And the one that's so small, it can't actually be seen and has all of the powers. Yeah.
Yeah.
I loved it, but it was a lot darker than I thought. The Cat in the Hat is a bastard.
He really is.
Such a dick.
Not a good person.
Not a good person. Not a good story to be reading to children. Hey, kids, don't tell anyone that there was a cat in the house messing stuff up, but it's okay because they fixed it all before they left. And guess what? The kids don't tell the mum. That is a terrible lesson. It is terrible.
Yeah.
As long as everything's fixed, don't tell the parents.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not wrong. What was your favorite, Daniel?
Probably All the Places You Go. I think that was probably my favorite.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I feel like green eggs and ham, like I didn't like either of those foods normally, so making them green only made them less appetizing, so that's probably my least favorite.
The one Dr. Seuss I always loved that it just feels like really prescient and important right now is the Sneetches. Do you know the story of the Sneetches?
No.
So Dr. Seuss wrote a story about the Sneetches, and it's in a book called The Sneetches and Other Stories.
I know they get Steeches.
No, they don't, but they do get stars. And the whole story is about how capitalism capitalizes on people's need to be different or special or unique and have a symbol representing that they are, let's say, verified or
Yeah,
whatever.
a blue star.
So he literally goes to this beach and makes a star making machine and allows some of the Sneetches to have stars, you know, when they pay for it. And then the Sneetches who have stars are like looking down on the Sneetches who don't.
Interesting.
And the Sneetches who don't are like, well, you know, we want stars. And then he allows, I don't know if it's exactly like this, but basically eventually there are so many stars that now the people who don't have stars feel special. And so then he makes a star removal machine where you can take the star off. And so it's literally just circles of Sneetches walking through the star machine and star removal machine as he rakes in money. And it's a brilliant story.
That's excellent and would work in the real world.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. So
that absolutely is how like things, I think that's just like how things work. Like that's how you get like the economic cycles where like if you guys like, I forget what it was, but I was reading something recently that was talking about how success used to be associated with leisure time, but now success is associated with being busy all the time.
That's interesting.
And so then it's going to cycle back around likely where, because I would love to be successful and then have leisure time. That seems like
Listen, I never moved from the success is having more leisure time.
That is your metric.
True success is making work your leisure time.
Yeah, absolutely. How about those Raiders?
How about those Raiders?
Are they doing
Please
good?
continue, Ian. Please continue. Tell us more about the Raiders.
You know, they just did that thing, didn't they?
Oh, yeah. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the thing the Raiders did.
I think the ref was way off base. Does he have eyes? You don't know.
Brains are weird. I just saw Ian out of the corner of my eye take a sip of his tea or coffee. I'm not sure if it's coffee or tea. Sip of his tea, and I was like, I have that same mug. He's literally in the room in my home using my mugs, and my brain sees him on the screen and is like, hey, he's got the same mug I do. It's amazing.
Hey, that llama and the woman he's carrying looks like my son and wife. Go fuck yourself, Sin Clubbers.